Did you have any concerns about it being a difficult thing for an audience to grasp, or did it feel that it was something that people could grasp?
Well, it's like, fuck it, you know? I mean...
Christopher, thank you so much for coming, first of all, for presenting the film here. This, as you know, is also a historic venue. The Ontario Place Cinesphere was the first permanent IMAX theatre. What's it like to present your film in the home of IMAX?
It's amazing. I was here a couple of years while it was still closed down when they were testing the first generation of laser projectors here and paid a visit. And I remember saying to David at the time, it seems like such a great venue. I'm so pleased that they're getting it up and running again. And the projection is so spectacular. I mean, the way we've just seen the film is, it's remarkable.
And I imagine that as you were making it, there were some challenges in making sure the period detail was accurate with a story that so many people, especially British people, would know quite well, especially when you're working in a format with such detail and such scale.
Yeah, I mean, at the resolution we're working at, everything has to play as real. You can't really fake anything close to the camera, although we used a lot of tricks for things further away from the camera. And so it was really incumbent on all the department heads to come together and really try and achieve a feeling of reality. But we sort of set the tone with that by the decision that Emma and our production designer, Nathan, and our DP, Hoyter, made right at the beginning to shoot on the real location. So the film was shot in the actual place that these events took place. And I think that set the tone for everybody involved with the film to really try and be as, I suppose, as authentic and you know, as accurate as possible.
Did that require special permissions to shoot at Dunkirk?
Yeah, I mean, the town were extremely helpful to us. They saw the value of, you know, preserving that or getting across that important element of their history. But they were terrific. I mean, there were all kinds of things we had to do, a lot to do with ordnance. That is to say, you know, there are buried munitions on that beach still from the actual events. And so every time we would need to do one of our explosions, we would have to do a controlled explosion first to see if it would set off anything.
To make sure there weren't any real...
Yeah. And anything in the water, you know, diving crews had to go down and look for ordnance and stuff. I mean, which, when you think about how long ago it is very sobering in terms of the lingering impact physically, even to these kind of events around the world have. It's depressing, actually.
And these are also the real planes, and all of the other details are quite authentic as well.
Yes, I mean, we did not go for authenticity at the expense of clarity for the audience. So there are decisions that were made. For example, the enemy planes, the ME-109, has a yellow nose, and people who really know this stuff know that it was only painted yellow about 2 months after these events, the rest of the war. But trying to give people visual cues to distinguish between the German planes and the Spitfires, particularly for people unfamiliar with the history. Those were the kind of decisions we were making.
You mentioned CG, and of course, in many of your films, you have had that as a tool that you could use, but that was something that you didn't want to use here.
We felt that the matchup, the patina that computer graphics have, is a very poor match for this kind of imagery from World War II, from 1940. There's a sort of grinding the gears, there's a bit of a clash there. And so my visual effects supervisor, who I was working with for the first time on this film, Andrew Jackson, but he did a remarkable job, and it's the first film I've made where there are shots that I completely forget whether they're real or visual effects, because they're all drawn from some form of in-camera imagery that we were able to give him or that he was able to record for himself.
As far as I know, this is also the film where you've done the most shooting in 65 millimeter IMAX.
Yeah.
How did using that technology, the size of those cameras, the size and detail of the image that you're creating, how did it actually affect the design of the shots?
Well, I think it has an inspiring effect. I've been using the format since The Dark Knight for sections of the film, and I've always liked the way, with this grand canvas that you're given, and frankly the size and weight and the cumbersome nature of the cameras, you are pushed into a sort of slightly calmer, more tableau style of filmmaking that I think it improves me as a filmmaker. And this is the first time we shot the entire film large format. So the limiting factor with IMAX cameras is they're very, very noisy. And I don't like to do the sound in post-production. I like to record dialogue as we go. and use those performances from the actors. So in the past, we've always used a combination of IMAX and 35 millimeter. On this film, we used 65 millimeter, which is the format that David Lean shot Lawrence of Arabia, or Quentin Tarantino shot Hateful Eight. It's a very impressive format in its own right, just not quite IMAX. And so we mixed those two formats, and for the first time ever, we did the blow-ups of 65mm for this format and the reductions for all the other formats that went out in the world. We did them all photochemically. So it's an entirely analog finish to
Not
the film.
digitally.
Nothing digital, yeah. So the whole finish of the film is analog, which is something we'd been sort of striving for, but we never really quite had the guts to completely go for it and embrace the, dust off the old optical printers in the lab and everything. But Interstellar, we dabbled in it, and we were very pleased with the results, and so we did the entire film that way this time.
Obviously, the film image has a greater resolution ultimately, but what are the other effects between the two formats?
Well, it's been very hard to quantify for people over the years. I go into great technical detail about things like resolution and so forth, and Dunkirk is the highest. If you look at it in number terms, when you digitize it, it's the highest resolution film that's ever been shot, numerically speaking. But that's kind of irrelevant. It's really about the feeling you get watching it, the immersive quality you get. There's a depth to film, whether you're shooting on this very high resolution format or whether you're shooting regular 35mm. There's no numerical grayscale to it or color depth. So it's not 8-bit color or 10-bit color or 12-bit color like digital formats. It's just color and can reproduce, most of the colors your eye can see. To cut a long story short, photochemical film is the best analogy for the way the eye sees that we've ever come up with.
All of these different things, the size of the image, the quality of the resolution, these are really just ways of drawing people into the story and giving that sense of immersion. What do you think that does in terms of the storytelling, especially when you're maybe telling a story like this, a true story? Why is it important to use all of these technical tools to immerse people in it?
Well, it took me a long time to figure out how to take this story on. This is an idea that Emma and I first talked about a long time ago. She gave me a book of first-hand accounts of Dunkirk, with a view to exploring, could you do something with it as a movie? And we talked about it over the years. There's so many different ways to try and attempt this storytelling. And in the end, what I realized is what I wanted to do was, rather than sort of addressing it from a historical or a political perspective, I wanted to just put people there on the beach, or put them in the cockpit of Spitfire, or on one of the boats coming over. This way of experiencing a story, film, it's a very unique combination of an empathetic response from your fellow audience members and an involvement with the characters like that, and a direct visceral experience. And cinema's the only medium that can do that. If you go to the theater, you get the empathetic response, but you don't get the direct visceral response, or not much of it. Television also, very different. What movies allow you to do in an audience experience and on the big screen is combine those two things. And the tool that gives you as a filmmaker, as a storyteller, the tool that gives you is the ability to give the audience a direct experience at times in the film of, whether it's ditching a Spitfire on water or whatever, or, experiencing a barrage of mortar fire. You can really put the audience there, and yet they can still share the experience with the people around them. That's what's unique about theatrical presentation of films.